the Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. So, look, I've been critical of Bronny James, but more than critical of Bronny James, I've been critical of the evaluation of Bronny James for a long time. It really goes back to his senior year in high school when one ESPN draft analyst had him as the 10th best prospect coming out of high school, or 10th best prospect going into what would have been last year's draft. This is before he went to college. And I understand. When I got into this business in 2002, and I started doing basketball analysis on ESPN. I really started doing it 2004. I was kind of in the rotation at ESPN doing pre, post, halftimes, etc. I was seen as, by many people, a hater or very negative. And I've always believed that if you took all of my commentary, somewhere in the 75% to 80, maybe even 85% have been positive. It's just there has to be a balance of it. Everything can't be great. If everything was great, well, then we're misusing the term great. It's average, right? But I walked into a sport where Dick Vitale, and I know Dick Vitale's fighting cancer, and I mean this. He has been nothing but a complete gentleman to me, to my family, for the entirety of my life. What people don't know about Coach Vitale is when he got the job at the University of Detroit, who's, by the way, in our league, in the Horizon League. He got the job. There were two finalists for the job, Bob Gottlieb, my dad, and Dick Vitale. He went on from being the head coach at the University of Detroit to being the head coach of Detroit Pistons. He got fired. He became a TV commentator, and he is the most known college basketball commentator in the history of the medium. And he made a name for himself, some of it with analysis, a lot of it with catchy sayings and nicknames, but also with overall positivity. Oh, let me tell you about Mike Krzyzewski and now John Shia and Cooper Flagg. He reminds me of Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley. Oh, it's awesome, baby, with a capital A, right? If you can find a negative comment about anybody that people actually kind of like, good luck. The only thing he would ever say negative is, change that rule. When they have the tie-up rule in college basketball for 30 years. Like, change that rule. That makes no sense. Change that rule. They never changed the rule. But the point is, you walk into a sport and a medium in which the biggest and best known guy is always positive. CBS, who I went to work for, they were always, everything's positive. Positive, positive, positive. Don't be negative. But that's not real analysis, right? So I understand that I can be seen as Debbie Downer when I said, like, he wasn't one of the 5, maybe even 10 best players in his high school league in the Mission League. You're like, no. Yeah. 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 He's just not, he ain't that guy. I mean, remember, the year that he played at Sierra Canyon, he wasn't Sierra Canyon's best player. In their league, there's a school called Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame. It is a 5-minute drive from where the boys are broadcasting from in Sherman Oaks. On that team, they had Dusty Stromer, went to Gonzaga. He's better. Caleb Foster starts at Duke. He's better. Jared McCain, who started at Duke and is now in the NBA. That was on one team who beat Sierra Canyon 4 times. And there was never a game in which there was never a game in high school that he had 30, let alone 25. And while you sit there and go like, well, you're judging too harshly. Like, am I? Have you ever heard of a guard being a top prospect? Like, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I was better than Bronny James in high school. Okay? But I had a 44-point game. I averaged 20 and 10. I had a 30 and 19 game. Like, there's going to be somebody where it's going to be some game where you go off, right? Never happened. So he goes to USC, and he has that really scary moment where his heart stopped. And frankly, just for him to be alive is amazing, let alone come back and play. That's great. But the team was awful. When he started, they weren't good. The one game he did break out and had, I think, like 20 points was a 20-point loss to Oregon State, who was the worst team in the league, or one of the worst teams in the league. Like, they weren't good. And again, if you're a draft pick, there's got to be something there, and just didn't see it. LeBron's best friend, high school teammate, is the head coach of Duquesne this year. I thought that was a perfect fit. Go to Duquesne, build up your game, establish yourself as an alpha, learn how to be a dominant player at the college level, stay there a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then go and try and be a professional. Instead, LeBron tweeted out, hey, my son's better than half the guys we're playing against in the league. So here's the latest news. This is Brian Windhorst. Bronny played a couple games in the NBA, sent down to the G-League. Here's the latest news on Bronny.
I'm going to apply the brakes on my everything's fine on the Bronny front with this thing that's now happening, which is that from my understanding, he's only going to play in the South Bay Lakers home games, that he's only going to kind of be a part-time G-League player. And he's not getting on United Airlines and going to fly and go see these other teams, these playing these road games now. Because honestly, like, I know he was getting so much special treatment and nepotism. That's fine. Honestly, I don't care. Like I said, it's normal. Now I think it's actually detrimental to him. I don't like that. I don't know whose idea it was. Obviously, the Lakers are fine with it. They're doing it. I've now, on this particular instance, I think that's gone too far. And I don't think that benefits Bronny. I don't think it benefits the South Bay Lakers. And I don't think it benefits LeBron at that point.
None of it has benefited Bronny. It's become a joke. Like, you literally did like a Make-A-Wish kid for him, and you played him in the first game for 2 minutes. And then he scored 2 points in another kind of blowout, and you just kind of threw him into the game in the last 4 minutes of a game. Like, you don't develop that way. That's not how it works. You can't only play home games. What, he can't get on a United flight? Why? Why? What are we doing here? You know, and if it's a question of travel, well, LeBron, fire up the G5 and fly him to wherever he's got to go. Make him at practice. But he's only going to play home games? Huh? That doesn't make any sense. There's only like 30 WNBA games ever, I think, right? I mean, WNBA. There's only like 30 G-League games anyway. You're only going to play half of them? And then there's how much do you actually play him, because you got to develop some of the other young players on the roster. Figure out what else you have. How do you build on his development if he's going to play every other game or miss 2 games here, miss 2 games there, not be with the team? The whole thing has been, as we told you, this is about LeBron. This is about LeBron, who said, I want to play with my son. I want him to be in the NBA. And he said it, and the Lakers snapped their finger and made it happen. So let's talk about the reality. Reality is, no matter what Rich Paul said, it was complete BS. No one else was drafting Bronny, not because they were scared of him not playing or trying to recruit LeBron James, because he's not an NBA prospect. I have a very close friend who is a scout on a high-level NBA team who's tracked Bronny James for the entirety of his career. Go back and look. High school, AAU, college. There is no point in which he is elite at anything he does. And at his size, you got to be elite shooting and defensively. He's not. And all this does is expose it as, which is they were trying to please LeBron, which you could do, and I actually have no problem with. You waste a draft pick, you give him a 4-year guaranteed contract like he's a real NBA player, you put him out there the first game of the season. No one does that. So what it does is it strikes at the credibility of your coach who said, we love Bronny. Remember, this is a coach in J.J. Redick who's trying to earn credibility in the NBA. And what did he say? He earned this. No, he didn't. How? By being born with the name James on the back of his chest, on the back of his shirt? So it hurts your coach's credibility, hurts your GM's credibility, hurts your best player's credibility, hurts your ability to build a team, because especially in training camp and in those first couple of weeks, like, you can't talk about LeBron when Bronny's around. You can't be yourself when you're like, there's a kid over here who's the best player's son. Like, we can't just be ourselves. And now in the G League, how do you develop him? How do you build a team? How do you function? And it shouldn't come as a surprise. Go back and look. His last team at Sierra Canyon, an abject disaster. Right? Go and look at USC last year. The team, abject disaster. Essentially, both coaches, and the NFL wasn't fired, but it's not like they fought him over going to SMU. Sierra Canyon changed coaches. Same thing. Like, this toxicity is based upon one guy. And LeBron is a good father, is a good parent, but he's a bad basketball parent because he's making people elevate his kid to a level that his skill is not close to being at.